Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 5 of our course, where we will be switching gears from the market system and private goods and quickly taking a look at the public sector and public goods. Before we jump into Chapter 5's material, there are a few quick administrative items I wanted to go over. The first being our discussion posts. Wanted to thank you for taking the time to understand the material and to thoughtfully respond to your peers. It's not every semester that everyone takes these discussion posts seriously, so did want to thank you again and encourage you to keep up the great work. The second thing I wanted to go over were the results of our recent survey, where I asked you if you wanted to be part of a study group for the final project. The vast majority of you did not want to be part of a study group, but for those individuals that did, you will be receiving an email from me shortly with the information of the individuals in your group and how to access the final project study group. With that out of the way, let's take a quick look at Chapter 5. The first concept in Chapter 5 that's introduced is this idea of a market failure. And the idea of the market failure comes from Keynesian economics, where our market system produces too many or too little of a particular good. Remember, producers within our market system are driven by the invisible hand and motivated by profit, which in most cases is a great thing. Producers are driven by profit and making the goods that are demanded by consumers. However, there are certain goods where the motivation of profit may not be ethical or may not be appropriate to fill the demand of an economy. Let me give you a few quick examples. The first being the medical sector. Let's imagine for a moment that doctors who have a limited amount of time to do their work are completely motivated by profit. They may have two patients. One may need an unnecessary plastic surgery. The other may need very, very necessary cancer treatment. Well, if that first consumer is able to outbid the second, the doctor, completely motivated by profit, would choose to take on that unnecessary plastic surgery and forego the cancer treatment. That would be in line with the market system. They'd be getting the most profit possible, and the highest bidder would be able to get the good. However, it wouldn't be ethical. The second example comes from the defense sector. Let's imagine for a moment that our defense sector was private and motivated by profit, meaning the individuals with the most money is who our military would decide to defend. That, again, I think most people could agree is not ethical. So, when should we consider making a private good a public good? Well, the first rule I would go over is when a free market system gets into one of these situations of a market failure. Just to solidify this concept a little bit more, let me give you one more example, and the example is in education. Let's pretend for a moment that education is completely private, and there's individuals within our economy whose parents haven't gone to college, whose grandparents haven't gone to college, and they themselves are deciding if they should go to college. These individuals likely would not have the money to pay for that education, and it would only go to the highest bidders. That would make intergenerational poverty within an economy even worse. The second reason we might consider making a private good a public good is sometimes profit may produce a negative externality. Let's think of oil for a second. if oil was unregulated and completely determined by the free market system, then when they produced that oil, a lot of pollutants would go into our air. And eventually, it might make an area inhabitable. This would be an example of a negative externality produced within the private sector. When should we consider the opposite side of the coin? When a public good probably should be ran by the private sector? Well, the first reason might be looking at the expertise that a government might have in deciding the distribution of a particular good. Remember, most of our lawmakers are just that. They have law degrees, they have degrees in real estate, they have degrees in public policy. And these individuals are smart individuals within those sectors of knowledge, but oftentimes not in the knowledge that the private sector produces. So, if they are the sole decision makers of income distribution, they may not be making the best decisions for the economy as a whole because their knowledge is limited generally in law and public policy. The second thing is we have to keep in mind that government is not motivated by the same incentive structure as the private sector. So oftentimes they don't have that motivation of profit and they aren't the most efficient at doing their job. Anyone who's had to wait in line at the DMV knows this really, really well. Although their incentive structure might be good in helping the public and making the public a better place, sometimes profit makes things a lot more efficient. The second concept that goes over in the book is how does government make these decisions within the public sector? Well, there's two major ways. One, which is the more popular way here in the United States, which is the majority rule, meaning that individuals who vote and get the majority get to decide how income that they receive from taxes is redistributed. The second way, which isn't in the United States as much, is this idea of the proportional rule. Let me give you an example of that. If 10% of a particular party got the vote, they would be in charge of 10% of the income collected by taxes and get to decide where that 10% goes. If 90% go to the majority party, then they would get 90% of the tax and choose where 90% of that money goes. Like I said, for the most part, the US runs on a majority rule. Those are the broad topics discussed within Chapter 5. However, it's not going to go over all of the material, so make sure you're taking the time to block out of your schedule now to go over all of Chapter 5 and all of Chapter 5's homework. And, as always, if you have any questions, let me know. If not, we'll talk soon. Thanks.